All right. Good mythical morning to you all this nice Friday. Mohan, do you want to start off with the TA tip of the day?
Yeah, I'm gonna share my screen. So today's tip of the day is related to a process called storyboarding. It's a process designers, HCI designers use when they are building the interface. So till today, you have used like different approaches like designing prototypes, designing like mockups of on InVision. You have conducted user studies, you have conducted focus groups. So all those methods allow you to get some of the other information from the user and also integrate it in the user interface. So where does the storyboard fall into place? So storyboard allows you to collect no, a storyboard allows you to represent your ideas and in terms of like the context of the use of the app. And this idea is borrowed from the movie industry where they storyboard the whole idea and then they try to expand the details when they're creating the whole movie. So if you guys have seen Mandalorian, the images they show at the end credits, those are all storyboarding images they use in the end credits. So here, storyboarding, as you can see on this screen here, it involves four important things. There's characters. Who are the characters involved? What is the context of use of your app? And um, what are the user motivations? Like in the first image, you can see that people are frustrated. And in the last image, you can see that people are happy or people are enjoying using your app. So those kind of information is being captured through the storyboard. And the fourth part is the sequence. What is the sequence of events that is going to lead to using this your app? That is, and you will be using this storyboard. You will be creating a storyboard in a next activity. And the important thing you need to focus on is that you don't have to go in detail specific details of your app. So it's to show the story moding is to show how your app is fulfilling a user need or user uh, how is it addressing the user barrier rather than showing what happens if people click on this date section, what happens if people click on the time section. The goal is not to show how your interface is going to behave in those scenarios. The goal is to show how your app or interface is going to fit into the context of use that people are going to use. And that's the today's tip I have.
All right. Yeah, that's a great tip. And I want to point out that end users can give you feedback on storyboards. That's the really powerful part, is that even looking at that app, Mohan, I mean, that example system, everybody here could give you feedback on this, right? So so you can see again in the upper part, as you said, there's I think most of us have been in a situation where you want to go to some place and there's a long line, right? Uh, but we can start saying, giving you feedback, such as, would I use an app at this point? Or some people might say, well, I would never wait long enough for that. I would just go somewhere else. And you can start to get user feedback on, is this use case that your team is working around, does it need to be updated? Now, think about this, okay? In this era of COVID, our expectations and what we will be willing to put up with has changed drastically, right? So the question is, so here's just a thought question. If you're going to create this app called ebook, since the pandemic has started, if I were an investor, I would say your business model probably has changed significantly since COVID started. How could you ever figure that out as soon as possible? Right? So that's again, I don't have an answer to that, but I just want to put that question out to you all, of where things like storyboards, where do what are some real life examples? That's a good one right there, is that saying, hey, how would you know ebook needs to change because of things like the pandemic? Because waiting in line for an hour to get in a restaurant isn't a thing as much, right? Okay. And so again, the main thing is, Mohan has said, you're not focusing on the interface. You're talking about how people will be using your system. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. So today we have presentations, and I know we got quite a bit, so let's go ahead and jump right into it. Mohan, you're going to, we're going to be seeing the output from different groups, right? So I take it you're going to put the message, yep, put the groups in there. Great. And the feedback.
So I wanted to announce last time's winners. So we
Oh,
had
yeah.
2 winners last time with 7 votes each. That's room 4 and room 5. You can see that every week winners on that Excel sheet I shared with red highlight. So I think Yagya is leading with 2 wins.
This is not right. I don't want to add any stress to anybody, but Yagya, you are winning. So I do want to call that out in front. So with 2 points, winners in both weeks, we do have a current leader. So if you're competitive, I'm not competitive. I think those people who know me know I'm not competitive at all. I think Mohan and Andrew are rolling their eyes. I like to just keep, but again, what does the winner win? The winner will win a $10 Amazon gift card from me personally, right? It's not going to affect your grade. Nobody's going to get impacted, so don't worry about it. I just think it's always fun to try to win something, right? So I'm willing to give 10, buy somebody for my own money an Amazon gift card to play along. I will say though, the quality of the designs and things have been very, very high this semester, and Mohan is thinking about ways to help you publicize some of that information. So that's coming, so that you can have access to a lot of the outputs from this, in case that would help you when you're interviewing for a job talk or something like that. Okay. All right, Mohan, what are we going to do? We're going to go to group 1, room 1, and if somebody from that group. Thank you, Mohammed. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you, Professor. And yeah, so yeah, so we actually went through the data to identify the themes, and so after discussion, we were able to group the feedback into 3 themes. So the first theme that we identified was yeah, so it was the practical implementation of concepts. That so this included all the comments that want an equal emphasis on the projects as well along with the research. So and it is mainly like where the research can be applied on the projects, like uh, research, like the research these comments focused on how the research can be chosen to accommodate current industry needs, so that the project selected, based on the research, will be of good value to the students, like to everyone, even to the ones that who are not very keen on research, so that they can add it to the resume. And so this is the first theme that we identified. And the second theme that many comments focused on, what team activities. Like there were many lots of comments that focused on having team activities. So this can be made to use research more engaging and interesting. So that students can brainstorm different ideas based on the research paper they have read. And the third theme that we identified was completely research centric comments, that, like, you can see that, it says which research is awesome. And so so these comments actually mainly focused on extensively reading through the papers, because they thought that essay should be taught as a research subject, since lots of research are currently ongoing in this field. So based on these comments, we identified three action items. I would like to go in the order that we recommend the action items. So the first action item that we recommend is to focus on projects, because we believe that, assigning a project to solve real world problems using HSA, this is the most important action item, because this can help the students understand the practical implementations of the HSA concepts in the real world, and how it can be applied to improve the interaction that humans have with the computer. So
Yeah,
we
that's
can, yeah.
The time?
So
All right. So, I mean, I read through it. This is one of the things you all need to practice your 2 minutes to please stay on time, because every
yeah,
presentation you make has a time limit.
yeah,
Okay.
sure.
So we want to make sure that you leverage the time. I did read through the action items. Sounds like we're doing most of those. So I think that that's good.
Yeah,
Um, okay. Let's move on to the next group.
thank you.
Still muted. Okay, so for our group, what we did was coming up with our different groups is first, instead of just trying to start off with the three groups, we just kind of brainstorm different subgroups, and then we narrowed down our actual ideas, kind of following those steps to creating the affinity diagram. That's why you will see in some of these groups, um, there's two colored cards, because they probably were different groups, and then when looking at them, we was like we could group these together. So one of the groups here we could look at is like still um basically still focusing on research. As somebody else mentioned, research is still awesome. And then this other side kind of like improve on the research focus. So we decided to group these together because they're not necessarily talking about changing the course to do something else. We still want to have that research mindset, but either like tweaking it or saying that it's good how it is. Then we have practical, which is taking the ideas, kind of like putting the theory into practice. Um, so this kind of group just goes into the idea of like how do we take what we learn and then put it into actual use case. And then this last group here is letting people choose. So having people, giving them the ability to say, okay, I want to go this way with the project or this other way with the project. Now, the main action items that we took from this is making the class more beginner friendly, introduce them to the topics, because some of the comments that were mentioned was like, I'm not too familiar with either side and I would like to kind of learn more, or somebody might just be taking it for that reason. Making it more open-ended, giving people either, if you really have a research focus or more of a industry focus, that you could guide your project in that area, and applying the theory to real life. So that would allow us to basically, even as a researcher, we get the benefit of application, and as somebody in industry, we get the idea of understanding the theory behind what we're making for people. We have kind of like this other group, because sometimes these didn't directly fit into a group, and then we didn't want to force it into a group, so we just let it these other ones over here kind of stay as like a other category. We didn't want to
2 minutes.
completely cast them out either. So
Okay.
that's just our other group. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. so I think the interesting one might be the last one. So maybe we can, Mohan, maybe one during the lectures, I can try to do examples from both the research and from a industry example. And maybe we can also think about that for some of our projects or some of the assignments that we're going to do for the readings too, is maybe have it applied, having students apply things to research and then apply it to a industry. That could be a future activity. All right, let's move on to the next one. Thank you.
Hi. So for our group, we looked at the reasons why most of the students were not really leaning to, would suggest that they would be leaning towards a lesser research focused area in terms of their responses for the survey. So by focusing on that, we came up with 5 themes that we thought were kind of like the represented the statement. So we thought, one, they wanted more practical projects, and they suggested more, explaining the design and the research, and also having a predefined set of topics. And then some of the responses were more in like the whole research was fine, and some were also suggesting a more interdisciplinary class organization. And from those classifications, we took the 3 action items based on the suggestion tied towards having more practical projects, which would be, creating more things that would relate to the industry and the students might feel like they could market. So that would help them in their future careers. And then also by explaining more of the design, it would create a more visual evidence that would match the ideas and the theoretical concepts that they're learning in the class. So that would really help the students as well in really grasping the whole research and blending it with the practical part of the course. And then lastly, talking about having the predefined topics would, one, make them more familiar with an overall research areas that are related to HCI, but also give them the whole notion that they could also streamline that and select which ones were more applicable to them. So giving the student more of those options were what we suggested as our action items. Thank you.
All right, thanks. And thanks for staying on time. I think you really budgeted your time well on that. I like that the concept of again, getting tangible examples. Mohan, one thought might be to say for a future project, future class assignment for a Wednesday is to have students bring, if they read a paper, to actually bring in a project or a website or an app that they want to improve using the concepts of the paper. So that's good. Mohan's still there, or he's frozen?
Yeah,
really.
and
Okay. You got frozen in a really great frame. So okay. Anyways, all right. So that sounds good. Thank you. Let's move on to the next one, please. So we're at group 4, right?
yes.
All right. It's group 4 planning and presenting today. All right. Let's move. Clayton, I've seen you on here.
We can move to group 5. They can come back.
All right. Let's move on to group 5, please. Oh, the class might be over pretty soon. Okay, there, Amanda, thank you. You were muted if you're trying to speak.
Whoops. Sorry, I had multiple screens and I had problems trying to get it to share the right one. Anyway, so we actually started, we identified 3 main kinds of categories, and it was like those that were focused on like research applications for the class, those that felt there should be some creativity and choice, and then those that wanted to focus on practical applications. And then so among these groups, we kind of divided it, after identifying these 3 groups, we went through and read, and then we identified like clusters in these groups to try to get a bit more insight. And so for practical applications, they suggest, we identified people wanting to use real life examples, or those talking about implementation driven engagement for the class. And then one kind of stood out here for the application of social good. And then there's a lot more overlap with the ones that talked about research and creativity and choice. These we kind of just put up here in the corner, like the research is awesome and I don't know, like, so we thought those were kind of just status quo ones. So some wanted to target research, felt the class should target research focused students. And then others kind of in this broad area said that, you know, master's students should still get familiar with research and how to do research. And then, you know, suggestions of having discussions about research. And then in creativity, there's like give choice on research or project or industry, you know, projects. And then some that said give a list of topics, you know, to choose from, but still have choice. And then based on these, we came up with 3 action items, like to continue to expose students to research by having them, you know, have us still read papers and have like class discussions of papers. Then, or you could also list the conferences they can choose from to read papers from. So it's still HCI and still what we do, but then students get to pick the topics that they do projects and things on. And you could also have like 2 tracks, like a research and a practice track. And then like, so maybe PhD students do like the research track and the master students do like a more practical, and then you pair those groups up to do projects. So that the ones that are focused on more research, like everyone gets some experience, but like maybe the research students can focus more on research and the, you know, master students can focus more on the practical applications, but they still need to work together and learn from each other. So that's kind of what we came up with.
Yeah, I like that. I think interesting maybe that, especially number 2, list conferences so they can choose from. Maybe Mohan, we could give them a week where we just give them a conference in a year and they get to choose, people get to choose the paper that they find the most interesting, maybe, you know, from CHI 2020, and letting people choose. I think we'll have to think about what does that mean from a class activity perspective, but I like that idea. Okay, cool, thanks. Group 6. And group 4, we'll circle back around to you. So if you're listening, you've got till the end of the class. You're muted.
Yeah, so our group came up with 5 major themes, and I'm going to go ahead and explain each of them. The first one was having projects or applied research in terms of implementation. The second one was interactivity, creative thinking, where there's a lot of brainstorming discussion where students have to think and express themselves and interact. The next one was specific research, giving them, instead of asking them to come up with topics, we give them specific research topics and which are related to state-of-the-art technologies or industry-relevant technologies. Another one was instead of us giving them the topic, they would get to choose the topic they want. And here you'd see that there's a green note that's there in both the themes because it was asking us to give them the choice as well as having that choice relate to a industry relevant topic. So we put it in both the themes. Finally, there was another one which was just for the general comments, and there was no specific change. It just talked about how students felt research was needed, and the course was good as it is. So the action items that we came up with were, the first one is focus the course on projects that include applied research rather than pure research. That is basically projects, give them more project rather than just reading papers and having pure research. The next action item was allow for discussion and brainstorming of research topics, and in such a way that it increases curiosity and interest in students. The next one is provide specific topics for research that align with industry related state-of-the-art problems. Finally, the last one was allow flexibility in deciding the projects people want to work with based on their grade level or interest, which is just giving them the option to choose based on their interest. Finally, this wasn't exactly a solution, but rather a suggestion. And this was about maintaining the course as it is because they feel that research is good and it should be kept that way. Thank you.
Okay. All right, thanks. Industry-related state-of-the-art problems. I know several groups have brought that up. I think that maybe that could be an interesting lecture that happens early in the semester, so if people are aware what those trends are and can potentially choose projects towards that. So I think that's an interesting direction to go. Okay, thanks.
Group 7.
Hello. So
Okay.
for our group, we came up with 4 main categories, which related to having more practical approaches to the projects and sort of real world scenarios. Then there was also a group of people who sort of they liked research, but they suggested maybe making it more interesting, and with a couple of suggestions on how to do that. Then there were also people who said, okay, it would be super helpful to have the option to choose, do we want to do more research focused or more like industry related things? And then there were other people, as other groups have mentioned, research is awesome, or they like the research focus as is. So for the prompt, which was recommend 3 action items for the next HCI instructor for non-research centric audience, we came up with basically engaging students with more real world problems, making research more interesting to students by looking at it from a different perspective, and also keeping it light and basically just overall trying to make it interesting, and then giving students the option to choose between research oriented and non-research oriented or like more industry related projects.
Okay. Yeah,
Thank
so,
you.
so I think, taking a step back, I mean, we're seeing obviously some pretty common themes. One thing that's coming to mind is there seems to be this dichotomy, whether it's research or industry, and they're competing interests. And I don't believe that to be true at all. Having been both a researcher and in industry, I think that they are actually very aligned in many ways. So I think that if I were to take a look at a deeper level look, I think, Mohan, is to really think, how can we get this course so that students see it, that those are not two polar opposites that we've got to fight competing interests on, whether you're on team A or you're on Edward or whoever the other werewolf or the vampire was, forgot. But it wasn't on which team you're on, but to say, hey, we're all on the same team here. How can we get research projects that help people understand both of them? Okay. All right.
I think, these views are from the initial part of the class, the first day of class. Yeah. And if we establish that in the first class that these two are not separate, they support each other and go hand in hand, then that could be a good solution.
Yeah. That's a good point. Okay, good. Thank you. Let's move on.
There is room 9.
Yep. Okay. So for ours, we started off by creating sticky notes for each suggestion like everyone else did. Everyone in the team just started dragging these notes around to different groups. We had very little discussion. We just kind of let it be an organic process. Once all the notes were placed in the group, we talked about what each group represented and used that to reorganize a few items between groups. We then color-coded each group and discussed how we wanted to handle items that fell into multiple groups, which was deciding on creating duplicate cards. And then we labeled each of these groupings, such as choosing projects, bridging between the gaps, the way to interact with research, and color-coded them. After that, we kind of reorganized once again, and then we took a look at it from a suggestions perspective of what people were asking for from the class. And so from that, we came up with these 3 groupings. And it kind of gave us our suggestions from these groups. We naturally generated 3 main categories. And based on these themes and these notes, we came up with the suggestions of increasing interest in research by presenting practical applications based on the research studied, having smaller research focused project early on that is basically like a research summary, and then a larger project that focuses on more of a application of that research. So these are our three.
Mm. I like that that first column there, increasing interest in research. Could that be one of the interesting outcomes of this class? Is students come out of here more fired up about research, whether you were you said, hey, I just wanted to, I'm practical and I'm only interested in that, but then could they come out of this class interested in research? Um, I think that's an interesting direction to go. Okay, thanks.
Uh, I think we have just like absent groups left. We can go with the group 4 now, then we can go for recorded videos.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, we got 2 recorded videos. Okay, group 4, are you back on?
Yes, good morning. Sorry about earlier. Our presenter, I think, wasn't able to make it to class, so we had to make a quick substitution.
Thank you for subbing in.
One second, I'll just share my screen.
Okay.
Right. So with our process was a bit similar to the last group in that we just started categorizing the different topics into what we felt went together without really much discussion at the beginning. Once we had a broader categorization, we started discussions and rearranged various prompts, duplicating them where necessary. The three main themes that we were able to establish after this process was first, focusing on research while making it more accessible. This had two subcategories of people who didn't want any major changes, and a second one which involved making research less daunting for novices through a more guided introduction to the process. The second theme we found was the options of creativity, choice, and novelty, allowing for people to express themselves in their product in their projects by offering them more choice and the ability to use novel technologies. The third theme we found was impact and application, in that helping students to understand the impact HCI research can have in practical scenarios and the applications of theoretical concepts that we can see in the real world. Based on these three themes, we came up with three action items. The first, going with the first theme, a guided and directed introduction to research that walks through exactly how to analyze a research paper. And for this process, choosing papers that serve as a good entry point into understanding HCI and can help flesh out some of the foundational concepts in the field. It helps with onboarding. The second one was to allow students to choose their project topic and structure the project in a way that the work allows for evaluation from both a practical and application standpoint and not exclusively a research standpoint. The final prompt was to maybe have an initial lecture on a recent HCI paper that has led to some significant real world impact and explaining that to the students of the class.
Okay. Hold on, sorry, you got nutty puppies. Hold on. Overall, big picture, I like that your action items are great. Hold on a second. Oh, okay, so I really like the action items. I think number 1 and 3, I think doing that early on, maybe Mohan doing a deep dive of a recent paper and really walking students through how we read it and analyze it would be great. So I think that's a really valuable action item. So yeah, this is some of the more actionable action items. So I appreciate that. All right,
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry, Amanda, my dogs are triggering. They trigger each other every day. It's the same, their nemesis is this Great Dane that lives next door, and every day. Okay, let's move on.
I'm going to share my screen to show the recorded videos. Um, we have the first HCI group 1, and I think this like voice is too low. I could not hear on my screen at least, on my laptop at least, but make sure you have your voice maximum for this.
Asset, my team came up with the following affinity diagram. It had three major themes. First one was alternative methods of teaching research concepts. That included minor themes like having freedom, in which concept of HCI you want to read the research papers of, having more discussions in the classroom, reading, associate some sort of assignments with reading the research papers, such as giving students bonus marks, and other miscellaneous suggestions that corresponded to the same major theme. Our second major theme was focusing only on the practical aspects of research and not reading the research papers or studying them. It had a minor theme which was making all the studies user centric, and the second one was teaching HCI concepts through real world examples and associating some sort of research with them. Our third major theme was project based learning. This involved teaching the students HCI concepts not through reading research papers or learning from examples, it was through projects. These were this is one of the minor themes which included suggestions for projects. The second minor theme was giving an option to students either to do a research or to take part in a project, and these were some suggestions that didn't make any sense. So, to the actionable item for this major theme would be the professor could teach the research or the concepts in different ways than conventional ways. For this major theme, the action would be focusing on
Okay,
real world
we can just pause it. Let's move on to the next one. To be fair, got to give everybody the 2 minutes.
Each person in our group was asked to organize the yellow stickies to form groups of similar ones. After 5 iterations, 1 iteration for each person, we were left with 7 themes denoted by pink stickies. These are: why is HCI important? Random, which does not denote any similar meaning in the yellow stickies. Implementation of research papers, industry-based projects, students select projects themselves, real-world examples and projects, then extra credits for research work. After this, we discussed about these 7 themes and grouped them in these 3 major themes denoted by blue stickies. The first is framework for HCI concepts, in which it denotes that the instructor should provide a very good understanding about HCI topics and why is HCI important. Then there is research and industry blend, which denotes that instructor should design the course in such a way that there is an equal component for research topics and industry topics. Then there is freedom to design projects, which denotes that students should be provided an opportunity to design their own projects in which they can choose how much component of research they want and how much component of industry they want. And if they choose research-based component, then they should get extra credits for that. Based on these 3 themes, we propose these 3 action items. First, students should be made aware of HCI concepts and its future prospects both in research and industry. Second, the course should be designed with equal components of industry and research methods. Third, students should get flexible options to select their projects and their research component as per their interests. Thank you.
Yeah, so I think if we take a step back from taking a look at all this, hopefully you all got the value of a mechanism to pull back from potentially just a flood of all these, again, you start off with what, 36, 40 different ideas, and if you just read through them, it's very difficult to make sense of that, right? And you all definitely saw some major themes that arose out of it. In doing so, what I've seen many times, especially in the industry, is it helps the team not over respond to 1 or 2 things, right? Because if you saw research is awesome, then all the people with that would point to say, look, people like it, we got to do that. And then you've got all the ones that maybe you read, the ones that talk about practical applications and helping with your career, and you focused on that. Now, there's a danger to overreact to any one thing, right? So here you're able to take a step back and go, okay, what are the bigger themes? So if you were going to be the instructor of this class next semester or next year, right? Think about what each one of you how would you lay out this course, and how would you iterate and improve on perfection. I mean, what we currently have right now, right? So this is a way to think for you all to think about how to process that. Okay. Mohan, any other thoughts about voting or anything, or anything else this morning?
No, like I think Qualtrics is slow in terms of producing the report, so I'll post the winners next week.
Okay. And so what I would ask for you is, so given that you might be teaching this class next semester, if I'm saying, if you were to put that hat on, pretend you're a professor and you're going to teach this class next year, who came up with the best action items? That's what I want you to vote on, right? So who came up with the best actionable processed information that you say, you know what, they did a good job. I could actually use that and I could figure out how to change my course better. All right, that's what we have today. I figured, you know what, and Mohan, I think I brought this up in front of my research group earlier today. You know, with no spring break this year, this is really feeling like week after week. And I know that a lot of you have lots of meetings after meeting after meeting. We're gonna try to find a way for us to build in a little bit of mental health break from the stuff that did over and over stuff. So Mohan, maybe you and I can chat about a potential week next week or the week after, just to give students a little bit of a break, because I know that they have lots of project meetings. They've got other meetings outside of this class too. So we can think of a way that still helps them stay on track time-wise, but gives them maybe a little bit of a reprieve for some of the things that are taking up a bit of time. Give folks a bit of break. We're going to try for that. Okay. All right. Well, again, we are going to end class 10 minutes early. I hope you remember this whenever you come time to fill out end of semester reviews, that we finish 10 minutes early on February 26th. Hopefully that will influence your scores. I want that to be a confound in the scores for sure. All right, so class is dismissed. Thank you everybody today. I'm happy to stick around and answer questions that you have. Otherwise, see ya. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
There was a mention